Welcome back, viewers, to our episode. And today, like what I introduced earlier on, we've got our lovely Dr. Kudzai Matereke. And we're looking at a couple of journals that you did. And we've discussed quite a few of them earlier on in the first part of this interview. And the very important thing right now is we've got quite a few. How many do you know by head? How many you wrote, by the way?
Nah.
Do you want me to count from here? or I can see more than 15 here.
Yeah.
15 articles, book chapters.
Divided into book chapters. They're divided into referee journals and also magazines, articles.
That's quite a lot. And you know what? There's one that really caught my attention that you wrote in 2009.
Yep.
And the title is Embracing the Aussie Identity. Theoretical reflections on challenges and prospects for African Australian youths. This is a special one, I would say. I want to understand what was the tick in you? What really made you to think, you know what, I want to write about this?
Okay, so the main thrust of the article is just to look at what are the challenges that African youths who had migrated to Australia face in their attempt to embrace the Australian identity. So how it came about was that when I came in Australia in 2007,
14 August, by the way.
on 14th of August. So what triggered this paper was that when I came to Australia in 2007,
yes,
there were stories about young Sudanese males in Melbourne who were described as failing to fit into the Australian way of life.
I like that, being described.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So the reason why they were being described as failing to fit into the Australian way of life was that probably there were incidents of violence or incidents of unruly behavior. And it triggered a question in me to say, how does this happen to somebody who has come from Africa when they come to Australia? Why does that migration pose as a challenge to that individual? At the same time, I was also trying to look at how does the Australian identity interact with the person who is coming from elsewhere, who is considered to be foreign. And as time progressed from 2007, I also watched Teresa Ewushe when she was on the Australian Idol. And she was a very, very, very competitive singer on the Australian Idol. But there were comments that were passed about Teresa's behavior, especially when she was responding to the judges. Some judges were just giving negative comments to her, and at some point she had an outburst. And one comment that I remember very well was she is failing to be to fall under the norm of the African woman or African lady. So I said to myself, what does it mean to be an African lady? What does it mean to be an Australian lady? And so I saw a clash between, on one hand, Australianness, and on the other hand, Africanness.
Yeah.
How can, so the question that animated in my mind was, if someone is coming from Africa, what do they need to do for them to fit into the Australian way of life? So it triggered questions about what is identity, what is belonging, and also at a psychological level, what does it mean to be Australian? And I saw in those conversations maybe the idea that identities are actually constructed. You don't just wake up one day and say this is, you actually construct it, and you construct it through narratives. And looking at the Australian identity, I also figured out how there were myths and legends about Australianness that shaped that unique Australian identity, but that unique Australian identity is constantly challenged, especially in the backdrop of Aboriginal dispossession. So that is why I thought maybe the Australian environment provides a fertile ground to look at identity, to look at how Africans can embrace the Australian identity, but also remaining visibly, culturally, or whatever, proud of who they are as Africans.
I like that.
So that's really what triggered that particular article.
Okay. So you're saying when the immigrants are coming in here, say we're talking about people coming from Africa, they still need to respect their own culture. They still need to practice their own cultural activities, celebrate their own cultural moments, whether it's independence, whether it's everything, Diwali or everything else, But at the same time, be in a position to adapt to the Australian community.
Yeah. So the element of adaptation or adaptation is actually one of survival, and also you want to function.
True.
And you want to be part of the community, which is very important. So when for example, there's actually a certain part in that article that I was trying to point to the fact that it's the moment when we start posting positive stories to the Australian narrative that we become part of Australia. If for example, African migrants are coming to Australia and there are negative stories about them, sometimes it might be difficult for them to embrace the Australian identity. But when they start posting positive stories, for example, you see Africans or Australians of African background excelling in different areas of Australian life.
That is so true.
That's when you start having a positive image of yourself as an African in Australia. And you can proudly say, I'm an African Australian. Or probably even to remove the African and say, I'm an Australian. But when you say that, still you can find stigmatization, you can find some people who are negative to it. So it remains a constantly shifting conversation depending on what is happening around. So the onus or the obligation rests with the Africans themselves to be able to identify themselves and also define themselves in a way that gives them some pride of place and some pride in the Australian imagination. So that's mainly what I was trying to say, but it was born out of, the article was born out of those observations that I had, and also my attempt to make sense of place, both at a personal level, at a family level, and also at a community level, trying to make sense of what does it mean to be Australian? What does it mean to be an African who lives in Australia?
Wow, that's quite interesting and mind-boggling actually, because you really went down on it. And the one thing that I really like from what you put across is let's push out even our positive narratives. Okay, let's talk about the things that we are also doing well. You also mentioned that there are people who African Australians who are amazing, excelling, in different areas of where they're working, and that's not the reason why we're sitting here as well, so that we definitely celebrate what you're doing at a professional level, the diversity that you put across on the table, and obviously having those peer-reviewed journals on the table as well. And I hope you don't mind if on this chat we can ask our producer to share the link for the peer-reviewed journal, the journal that we're talking about right now. Is that okay?
That's fine.
That's all right?
Yeah, it's actually available on the public forum. So
beautiful.
It'll
beautiful.
be good if they can share the link.
Exactly. And the other thing, we talk about sharing that positive narrative as well, right? Is there anything else that you think us as African Australians, when we go out there, we're okay, all right guys, we're here. What are the other things that you think when people we just migrated, right? What are the things that you think could help us, get into society better?
Probably it's just forming positive relationships with other people, not just restricting yourself to the people that you know or the people that you think are maybe they're from Africa. So I should be more closely affiliated to these. Just be human. See everyone as a fellow human being and embrace that diversity and place yourself in a way that you become instrumental in your community. Do charity work, mix with other people and share ideas, and involve yourself in community activities if you have time. But I know that sometimes working 2-3 jobs sometimes is very difficult. But when you can join community activities and embrace your neighbor, embrace the person behind you, person in front of you, and see them as fellow humans. With that approach, you easily engross yourself in this community as a common project, as a commonly shared identity.
Okay. I love the fact that you're saying, so we are not encouraging people, say, for example, they just do their own not little parties when they're saying, okay,
they can.
just ourselves, or we go to, we organize maybe a soccer competition just for ourselves. But it's encouraging that we even join even weekend parties to other communities as well.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with celebrating, for example, Africa Day but what's wrong with inviting other people to that particular event? What's wrong with maybe sharing that and find people who could be not from Africa but coming to be part of that particular event? So it's good because you're also showcasing yourself, but at the same time you're also learning from others, and the others are learning from you. So I'm not against the idea of forming an African soccer team, but who are you going to play with? And also where are you going to play it? And who are you going to involve in that process?
I think I totally agree with you on that one. I think it's a very, very key thing. But at the same time as well, even like you've put across, inviting fellow colleagues, whether from Iraq, whether it's Australian, from Germany, from Wales, and we get along together. Then we just celebrate, enjoying ourselves, going out there, and the other thing also, I'm also thinking, even if the other communities are also doing their own family or cultural activities, to be good to open up, go out there and enjoy them. You go to work, they bring their own food. Try it, give it a shot.
Exactly. I am a member of the Fitzroy Rockhampton Rotary Club. And we in Rockhampton we organized an African event, Africa Day celebrations. And I invited the members of the Rotary Club to the African event. And what did they do? They brought their barbecues, they offered their barbecue, and it was a shared event. So you're showcasing yourself, you're showing how hospitable you are, and they're showing how well received they have been. And in any case, when you're looking at, for example, the work that Rotary does work in Africa as well.
A lot of that, yeah.
So when you look at that, you are showing that you are not going to be separated by probably things that ordinarily people would think maybe they are markers of identity, but you are going to go over and beyond and circumvent those things that people would consider to be boundaries or to be, limiting.
Yeah.
So in that case, then that's when you allow other people to be in your life, and other people also allow you to be in their lives. So that's basically what I think can help communities to integrate and also to have a better view of each other beyond the generalizations, the stereotypes, and all that.
That's so true. And it helps, like what we put across right now in terms of getting the community, and it helps you adapt quicker and faster.
But without taking away the element of you being yourself.
Exactly.
You can still remain yourself. You can still remain a proud boy from Zaka or a proud boy from Watsomba.
Yes.
But still being able to have a chat and embrace the other.
That is so true. That is so true. Yeah, Dr. Kudzai Matereke, it's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure having a chat with you.
Thanks for having me.
And
Thanks.
this is some of the conversations that we have, and sometimes having a drink or two we never talk about.
Exactly.
But and I'm hoping this is going to help a lot of viewers.
I hope so too.
True. Viewers, thank you very much, and it's a pleasure to have you on this episode. And we just want to thank Dr. Kudzai Matereke for being here today and share this base of Admire the Art of Business. Thank you very much. As we are coming to the end of this episode, I just want to ask you, Dr. K, what are the encouraging words that you want to tell someone, say from Africa or an immigrant from any part of the world, going to Australia, going to any other host country? Is there any encouraging words that you want to, help the youngsters or even older people as well when they change countries?
Okay. Yeah, good question. So I think what I can tell anyone coming from Africa to any new country like Australia is that, for example, in Australia is a land of possibilities, but the possibilities are not going to come your way. You got to find them. You got to remain open to possibilities, and you ought to form connections and also to use the resources that we have. And by the resources, I mean the intellectual resources that you have, your mind, and also your skills, your ability to form connections with people. And then it is only when you have formed connections with people that you realize the massive potential that lies in you.
Wow.
So everything is in you right there.
Wow.
All you need to do is just to explore within, and it will come out.
Oh, wow, beautiful. Dr. K, thank you very much for the encouraging words.
Yeah.
And our viewers, thank you very much for joining us. And on YouTube, you can check me under Admire Attain. That's one of the channels that I've got under YouTube. You can go on Instagram as well, admire_the art of business. You can also check us on Facebook as well, admire_the art of business. And thank you very much for this episode, Dr. K. Thank you, viewers. We'll check you on the next episode. Cheers.